Welcome to the City Club of Eugene's April 21st, 2023 program. Meet LTD's new General Manager and CEO, Jameson T. Otten. This is the 27th program of our 2022-2023 programming year, and my name is Karin Knutson. I am the President of City Club's Board of Directors. The City Club of Eugene comes to you live today from the 5th Street Market in the heart of downtown Eugene. And I'm delighted to welcome our speaker, Lane Transit District CEO and General Manager Jameson T. Otten, and welcome also to all of City Club's members and everyone who is here with us and listening today. It is a pleasure to have you here as a part of this community conversation. For almost 30 years, the City Club of Eugene has remained committed to its mission to build community vision through open inquiry by providing weekly programs that offer the opportunity for community members to learn together, discuss important issues, and consider differing viewpoints. Through their participation, City Club members and speakers model respectful and curious civic engagement, which we hope informs and empowers our community to better engage with the important and sometimes difficult work before us. We believe now more than ever that this open exchange of ideas and information is critical to the future and health of this community and to all communities, and City Club is proud to create space for civil dialogue around civic issues. We invite all of you to join us every week to hear directly from local, national, and international experts on current local events. Of course, we cannot do this work without your help and without the support of City Club's business and in-kind sponsors. So a special thank you today to City Club's Diamond sponsors and to our new Platinum Community Partner. The Eugene Chamber of Commerce serves as a catalytic leader in creating a vibrant and diverse economy that drives community opportunity and well-being. And you can learn more at eugenechamber.com. Kaiser Permanente exists to provide high-quality, affordable healthcare services and to improve the health of our members and the communities we serve. And you can learn more at kp.org. The University of Oregon has helped Oregonians to question critically, think logically, reason effectively, communicate clearly, act creatively, and live ethically since 1876. And you can find more at uoregon.edu. Peace Health has been proud to serve Eugene, Lane County, and beyond as your hometown healthcare partner for more than 80 years. The Peace Health mission is to keep you and your family healthy, and you can learn more at peacehealth.org. And Lane Community College transforms lives through learning. LCZ provides comprehensive, accessible, high-quality educational opportunities that promote student success. For more information, please visit lanecc.edu. And thank you to the City of Eugene and to Lane County for their support. If you're here with us today for the first time or are a longtime City Club listener, I invite you to support this weekly programming by becoming a member at cityclubofueugene.org. We want and invite everyone to become an individual organizational member, to sponsor a program, or to suggest an idea for an upcoming discussion at City Club's website, cityclubofueugene.org. It is your engagement in these conversations that makes them possible. A special thank you to our program committee volunteer, John Belcher, for coordinating today's program. Thank you, John. And now I will introduce Jameson and our conversation. Beginning a new leadership role at a multi-jurisdictional public agency might typically present some challenges. However, Jameson T. Otten's arrival as the new CEO and General Manager of Lane Transit District came amidst a particularly complex set of conditions, as well as public opposition to both transit service expansion and transit service reduction. After COVID-19 and before, like many public transit agencies, LTD has faced declining ridership and funding constraints, and it has also faced opposition to two very different initiatives. LTD suspended its plans to implement a project called Transit Tomorrow, which was designed to increase transit service reliability and frequency in some areas that served a greater number of riders and reduce service in areas on routes with lower ridership. After 3 years of planning, this project was dropped due to strenuous and clear opposition from people in the areas of proposed service reductions. Then, after being endorsed by multiple elected and appointed bodies, the LTD Board, Eugene City Council, and Metro Policy Committee, LTD's Moving Ahead long-range planning effort received significant public opposition, and specific elements of its study were the basis of a recall petition of a Eugene City Councilor. During the same time period, LTD's general manager resigned, and 2 governor-appointed directors on LTD's board were removed. We know that the technical work of leading a sub-district area, $163 million public transit agency is complex, but this work is apparently about so much more than just that. So today, we welcome Jameson, look forward to hearing his thoughts on the opportunities and challenges that LTD faces, including how our transit district will engage the community as it charts new courses into the future. Jameson, welcome to the City Club of Eugene.
Well, good afternoon. Well, she really set the backstory up, huh? It ain't that bad. It ain't that bad. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for having LTD here. I want to thank Susan Cox for being here. Susan's on our board and is doing a fabulous job as our board vice president. I want to thank others who are here as well, Bill Bradley and John Gangle with ATU, our union partners, in making sure that we deliver service to the street every single day in the right ways. I also want to thank other folks who have been around LTD longer than I have and who I met through the interview process and continue to provide insight, input, and their talents into what we do. Rob Zako with BEST, and Mike Eister as well. And if I've missed anyone, I apologize. Let me also recognize Pat Walsh, who is our Chief Marketing Officer, and Tiffany Edwards, who is our Government Relations, Director of Government Relations. So if you have any tough questions afterwards, there they are. There they are. Well, thank you, and thank you, John, for setting this up for us. LTD. How did we get to LTD? How did the Auten family get to LTD? Now that's an interesting thing. LTD was looking for a general manager. I didn't know that. I was actually in another job search and my phone rang and it was a recruiter and they said, hey, did you hear about Lane? And I hadn't heard about Lane recruiting, but I definitely heard about Lane Transit District. And I don't know if you all know this. A lot of times people that live in the service area of the system that they have don't know this, but I've always known about Lane Transit District, probably for the past 15 years. I don't know why, right? I know MX, but Lane has a very strong national reputation. You may not love us at home, but they love us all over the place. Very strong national reputation. And when I got into the interview process here, one of the first things I noticed was the weather was way different then than it is now. And this needs to stop. Someone make it stop. But the environment, absolutely beautiful. When we were here interviewing, we did sneak off and see the coast. We snuck off and saw some other things. And that was all beautiful. And then we got into the interview process. And that's when it really changed. The thing that I found out about Lane is with many organizations is the number one asset of any organization is its people. And the people that work in Lane, from those who turn wrenches to those who turn wheels to those who sit behind keyboards, is that they want to be attached to something bigger. They want to be attached to providing good service for the communities that help enable people to get where they need to go. And I've made a lot of jokes in my 6 months here about the number of councils and committees, and if I want an iced tea, I got to take it to 18 different groups and get their opinion. And then if I order coffee at the end of the day, it's okay as long as I had the process in place. And I scratched my head around that for a long time. Well, past 6 months, I probably have scratch marks. But then it hit me the other day, maybe the other week. It's about the connectivity. It's about the collaboration. And when you look at the mission values, the values of our organization, collaboration is right there. And that really does deserve to be there. So wonderful people there. My wife and I, we sat back and we won the job, and then we turned it down. And you may have heard that story. We turned it down. Well, I think for us, we just need more time to process. We have a family of 7 at the time. 7 were living with us, 8 if you count the dog. And moving from Kansas City, which the MSA is half the size of the state, coming here and trying to figure out 2 kids that have to finish high school and everything else. We just needed more time, but we got to the right decision. Some things opened up. My son, I don't know how, graduated early, big shock, graduated early. He's not the classroom. Of all the kids, he's not the classroom one, but he graduated early. Our daughter will graduate from Sheldon High School. She has to take one class. She's going to do it virtually. She's going to meet her classmates at graduation. So that happened. My wife started working remotely. And then all of the other opportunities that we were assessing, the comparison point was always LTD and what we experienced here. So we got to the right decision, and the board, I think, got to the right decision as well when I called them back. And here we are today. Here we are today. So who is LTD and what do we do? And more importantly, why are we important? Why are you funding us? What are we doing with your money? And how do we impact communities? Those are all great questions. Those are all great questions. So LTD, about 330 employees, all dedicated to helping connect our communities, helping people get to where they need to be, regardless of what it is or where they need to go. We have about 30 bus routes. Right now we have about 5 million trips that we do right now. A lot of agencies talk about the pre-pandemic days, right, 2019. Well, we are about 60% of where we were back then. But that's interesting because fixed route ridership as a whole in general was kind of going downwards a little bit, ridership numbers. So I don't use the pre-pandemic speech a lot. I look at where do we need to go for the future. And the pandemic taught us some things, right? It taught each of us some things. What are our priorities, right? You know, a lot of times it was, I need to go to work, I need to, you know, get to retirement, I need to do this or attain that or collect this or go here. The pandemic kind of opened a lot of people's eyes as to what's important. And I think that translates into how people are interacting with the service that we provide, how people view work. Remote work is a thing that's not going away. I told you remote work enabled us to move here, partially with my wife. So I think it's important for us to look at how does LTD play in that role as we move forward. So I don't use the pre-pandemic language too much. But I do know that when we come to work and we put our routes together and we look at how people are interacting with our service, it needs to be more than what we do today. So what do we do today? Well, we have 30 bus routes. About 40% of our ridership is done on our MX, our bus rapid transit service. Have any of you been on the MX system? Yeah. It's not normal to have that asset in a community this size. You know, I think that's one of the reasons why lane transit is known, and it works particularly well. It works particularly well, especially, you know, right on Franklin, and getting those college students where they need to be between Eugene Station and Station in Springfield, and extended beyond that, and making the connections going farther west into Eugene. But then also outside of our MX route, our highest route is our number 11 route, our Thurston route, that goes into Springfield. So the commonalities of those connecting from those stations and continuing that straight line east and west is really important to understand. I think that it's important for us to understand that as we provide service to our communities, you know, I'm here speaking in front of you, but I'm not the face. I'm not the face at all. The face is our frontline employees, our bus operators. So what do we say about our bus operators? Better yet, what does our community say about our bus operators? I've got 1,000 stories. I was going to speak here for 15, 20 minutes, but if we go off on that tangent, it could be an hour just on our bus operators. Our bus operators recognize when youngsters are out of position, right? And there may be someone who shouldn't be around them. They recognize that. They see that. They recognize when someone has fallen and can't get up. Literally, that question, I've fallen, that commercial from the 80s, I've fallen, I can't. They recognize that, and what do? They curb the bus, and they go and they pick them up. They play such a role in our community. And you know what? It's not just LTD. I can tell you stories from 2 other cities as well. So the public transportation matters more than just the ride. And I think that's the important piece that folks don't connect. How many have ridden the bus in the past month in this room? All right. So a small percentage, right? Small percentage. But what we find is a lot of the people that we depend on, they do. So one of the measures that LTD is looking at is community value. Not necessarily our customer value, which we look at as well, customer satisfaction. We have a survey out right now to measure that. But what's the community value, the overall value to the rider and the non-rider? And what we see is that we have first responders that use our service, we have medical professionals that use our service, we have students who are coming into the job force, workforce to the future that use our service. So whether you ride or not, you still benefit from public transportation. The type of vehicles that we use, I talked about the environment a little bit, when it's bluer, it catches my eye a little bit more. But in terms of the pristine environment that we have, the type of technology that we use on our buses, we use fully electric buses. We have a fleet of 100. At the end of the year, we'll have about 30 fully electric buses, to give it context. What do other buses run on? I'm going to say a bad word, diesel. Yeah, diesel sometimes makes people shrink. However, we use R99 diesel, which is renewable diesel. 99% of it's renewable. It's what the kitchen throws out of the grease from the grease bins. They pick that up, they turn it into diesel, and then we use it. So the vehicles that we use are clean. The people that are leaving their vehicles behind and jumping on those, that adds to that even more so. So LTD, whether you use the system or not, helps you breathe easier, right? It helps you breathe easier. If you have a car and you're on the road, it takes some cars off the road so you can get where you need to be as well. So, and it also delivers you your workers. So LTD very much is a pro-business organization because we're in the business of delivering workers to your front doors. So that's how folks who may not necessarily get on our bus benefit from what we do each day. But how can we do it differently? Do we need to do it differently? I think we do. I think we need to take a look at how we deliver service, where we deliver service. Things have changed, right? Things have changed. So how do we assess where we go? And how do we do that with the community? Because the question is not, what does LTD want to be for the future? The question isn't what does Jameson Auten want LTD to be for the future? The question is, what do our communities need LTD to be for the future? And that's based on how people use the service. That's based on land development patterns. Where are the jobs going? Where is the housing going? So where does the transportation network need to go as well? That's all a reflection of what the community values and where the community needs to go. So that's the question that we're asking, and we're doing it in a very intentional way. Internally, we're calling it LTD 2.0, though that's not the real name. They're tired of hearing me say that. And we're starting off with assessing our outreach and our communications. Moving ahead was mentioned, so let's go ahead and take that on right now before the questions come. So with moving ahead, there are several different challenges that happen there. It's when you do a capital project, that takes some time. It takes time from start to finish. And during that time, the players change. People move in, people move out, leaders move in, leaders move out, and then a pandemic happens. Okay, so the question for us is, how do we look at how we're communicating with the community, how we're bringing that information in, how we're really listening to that, turning that into information that we can use for decision making. We're going through that process now. We just kicked that off about a month and a half ago, and we're putting that strategy together. We will be using an external steering committee, because I don't want to rubber stamp the process. I want you all to be able to have a part in that. I want staff to be able to serve as resources so that we build a process that works, which is foundational for when we assess our other service models. So those other assessments include an overall operational assessment. We get the question, why are these big buses running around and there's no one on them? Well, we can talk about that. If you start from the front of the line to the end of the line, you'll see the on and off and on and off and on and off. And as you get closer to the end of the line, it's a lot of off. So yes, it's going to be empty at the end of the line. We can talk about that, and John and Bill can tell you more about that as well. So we're going to assess what routes are working great, what routes need more resources, what routes need less resources, what types of services are needed in different places based on the community and the characteristics of the community. We're running a test right now down in Cottage Grove that deals with microtransit, which is a smaller on-demand type of service that connects to the fixed route system, right? We don't know where else that needs to be or if it needs to go anywhere at all. We're gonna run a model and check and see what that looks like. We're gonna do that with the community. We're gonna do that with our union. We're also going to assess RideSource. Are you all familiar with RideSource? Yeah, RideSource is an important service. That's the service that helps our seniors and those with disabilities get where they need to go. Those who may have trouble riding the fixed route network, it's a door-to-door service that helps our seniors and those with disabilities. We also serve as the NEMT, the Medicaid provider as well here. So we have a brokerage model where it's one call, and we can identify what type of service you need and apply that to the right funding source, and you don't need to worry about that. But we'll get the trip over to you with one call. That's not normal, right? Some cities have that, but usually they're not the size of Eugene, Springfield. So a good investment in that part of our service as well. And we'll assess that service to see what kind of improvements can be made there, and we'll be overly transparent with that as well. And that brings me to another point that tied back to moving ahead. Moving ahead, we talked about the length of time it takes projects to get done, the players changing out. I will say that, there was a MX, right? We're going to put MX up and down River Road. Well, we did have to study the impacts of MX on River Road, because you look, when you do your environmental study, you see what's going to cause the most change to the environment, and you study from that. That doesn't mean that's what has to end up there, because you can peel back. But you do want to take a look at what would be the most impact. And I think that's the piece that wasn't communicated well on our side, and something that we have to do a better job of doing in the future. I think the other piece is that, do you all understand how LTD is funded? Anyone? There's a business owner, he strokes a check, right? So we're funded through we get federal funds, we get state funds, and we get payroll tax funds, which says to me, in a lot of other cities, there's a sales tax that flows through the city, right? And I know we don't do sales taxes in Oregon, and I am an Oregonian now. No umbrellas. I wear a hooded jacket. I'm good. I'm in. But I do want to stop wearing that hooded jacket for a couple days. But if there was a sales tax here, I would have to go, or send Tiffany. She'd have to go to city council, whichever one it is, and say, hey, here's how we're doing. Here's what we're doing with your money. Here's the ridership. Here's the safety statistics. Here's all of those things, right? Who do I go to here? I can't go to all the landscape companies. I can't go to McDonald's. I can't do that, right? So outside of that, in our board, and having the groups that look at us and hold us accountable, right? Bess, I see you, Rob. We have to be overly transparent. And I think, I love my company, but I think we can do a better job. That's an opportunity for us to be overly transparent. You should be able to go to our website, and you should be able to see whatever you want to find right on the top page. If you want to know ridership numbers, you can do that. If you want to look at our values or our metrics that we're using that tie to community values, you should be able to see that. Now, I will say that you're able to see that now. We're working with a program called TransDash that shows our strategic business plan, where we are in that. We've not promoted that heavily to the public because it's a little clunky. Right? We're trying to make it so the first time you go there, you'll go back, not call me and say, what does this mean, right? We don't want that. So we're working on that. Pat's group is working on how do we make that easier for the public to understand. I think that's a real opportunity for us. So I think those are the pieces that kind of laid into moving ahead. That said, we recognize that there are opportunities for BRT in certain places. We recognize that there are opportunities to enhance some of the service that we already do. 40% of our trips are running right now on Franklin Boulevard, right now as Franklin Boulevard currently exists. Now, people want to talk about roundabouts, right? the roundabouts are the roundabouts. My purpose is to make sure our big vehicles, and some vehicles that are even bigger than ours, can get through 'em, right? As a transit person, I prefer a straight line. I like straight lines. However, there's other considerations, and we will, LTD will be on the planning side to make sure that it works, and we'll go from there. But 40% of our service is running right now, and then to continue to run. Now, there is an advantage to that plan, which will allow us to have double tracking, which means we'll be able to have two buses going in opposite directions versus waiting and sharing one lane. That'll make trips faster, right? That'll make trips faster, so that'd be fantastic. And that's the benefit that we see from that. So in short, and I'll open up for questions because I really want to hear from you all. LTD is, we exist today to serve you. We'll exist tomorrow to serve you. How we serve you, we're trying to learn what works best for our future. And as we go through these different planning studies, which will culminate also in an actual updated long-range plan to go out to the future, and we'll be able to map to that. We'll be able to share that information with you, get your feedback, and also report our successes and areas of opportunity where we can continue to grow and do better. So with that, I'll open it up for any.
Thank you, Jameson. We are going to bring you right back in just a moment to begin our Q&A today, and we will have a first questioner from Rob Zako from Better Eugene Springfield Transportation. First, before we get to that, I want to thank today's Sapphire sponsor, Summit Bank. Founded in 2004, Summit Bank is the only independent community bank headquartered in Eugene. Summit Bank is Oregon's business bank, and Summit's mission is to be the best community bank for businesses and professionals. You can learn more at sbko.bank. And thank you also to today's gold sponsors, Network Charter School and Homes for Good. We will take a brief break, come back with our first question. Tables see lots of possible questions from this room and from the live stream, and we'll get right to that in a moment. Thank you. Welcome back to the City Club of Eugene and our program with Jameson T. Otten, LTD's new General Manager and CEO. Our first questioner today is Rob Zako, the Executive Director of Better Eugene Springfield Transportation. Rob.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, City Club. Thank you, Jameson, for being here. Welcome to our community. I first want to address there's some confusion about the relationship between LTD and BEST. And just to be clear with everyone, LTD is a publicly funded transit agency that provides amazing services, and you work for the public. BEST is a small, privately funded 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we advocate for better transportation. What better transportation means is that we don't say LTD is good enough, we're out of a job. Our job is to make you better and serve the community better. And so I really appreciate your comments about accountability and transparency, and I'm going to follow up on that. So go back 3 years, as Karen said, we had a pandemic. Transit world got turned upside down. The whole world got turned upside down. Businesses closed or shut down, people out of jobs, people not commuting. Lane Transit District had higher expenses because you had to do disinfecting and all sorts of stuff, and lower ridership and lower tax revenues. Congress saw this, and Congress provided transit agencies across the country with relief funding. LTD in 3 installments got something like $75 million. One of the challenges you faced is having difficulty hiring and retraining bus drivers. So my question to you is sort of a two-part question. Talk to us about how LTD has used that special one-time $75 million funding, and has that been used to help hire and retain more bus drivers, or what else are you doing to make sure that you have the drivers we need? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks for that question. So yes, LTD did receive what I call Corona aid money from the federal government. 3 different rounds of that, and about $75 million. And what that money was designed to do was make sure that we were able to keep the lights on and keep people employed. I mean, that was the purpose of it. It was also used to maintain operations, which meant making sure that we had to keep our buses clean. We had to look at how do we clean them in different ways. We had to look at what does the office environment look like, how do we set people up to work remotely. So that's what that money was for. I think in terms of the, and we do drawdowns with the federal government, by the way, and they check how that money was spent, and we are clean, okay? So I'll put that out there as well. It's been a national challenge to find bus drivers, not just public transportation, but school bus as well. Restaurants have had challenges. All kinds of retail has had challenges. So we're not special in that regard. But I think because of what we do and the service we provide, it's critical that we get those buses on the road. One of the first things that we had to do was we got to a labor agreement. We were outside of agreement for quite some time. Our frontline workers weathered that storm. They showed up every single day. They showed up as even the information was changing on how the virus impacted us, as the information was changing on how to mitigate the impacts of that virus, both on the bus and off the bus. And we had to make sure that they were taken care of. So we got to a labor agreement, which was important for that, and because the market changed. So we have frontline employees who are working in an environment that has changed. I think you will all agree with me that the characteristic of the city and the world really has changed. People just treat people differently over the past few years. Our frontline employees went out there every day, both with that environment and with the health concerns that they would take home to their families as well, just like any of us. So it was important for us to get to a contract that paid our folks properly, got them to market wages, and would allow us to attract bus operators. So we did that. It was the right thing to do. I would do it again. The second thing that we've done is change our marketing approach. And you may have seen some of the storytelling on the internet. You'll see a commercial that's in Spanish. You're going to look at your channel. You're on the right channel. The commercial is in Spanish with English subtitles. And what it's doing is telling the day in the life of what it means to be a bus operator. You know, people don't understand that you're doing more than driving. The driving part is just one part, right? If our bus operators were drivers, they'd go to Amazon and drive packages, but our packages talk, right? Our packages have feelings, they have good days, they have bad days, they have concerns, they have things that are on their mind, right? So tell them the day in the life and how, this area is so committed to being a bigger part of what community means, and telling that story of how our bus operators impact community, whether it be getting people to jobs or with the environment. So we've taken that approach, and we've started to see some bigger classes. We just graduated a class of 10 in March, February or March rather, March, and we have another class in right now, which is a little bit smaller, but it's bigger than the classes that we've been getting. So we're going to continue that strategy of telling our story, giving the day in the life, and using our employees to tell their story. We're not using actors. I told you we had 1,000 stories at LTD. We're using our employees to tell their stories. And some of these are generational stories. So the story that's in Spanish is a bus operator who may be driving right now, who found out that he could do it, and he raised a family on it. There's another story that talks about, there's two that are generational. One of our operators wears her dad's jacket, who worked for us for over 40 years. That story is running right now. So I think it's important that we tell those stories and we get them in the right place. And then finally, Rob, I do want to add this other piece. We have to look at how we're sourcing and where we're sourcing our employees, right? So we're looking at how does LTD play into the larger community, and how do we get beyond a bus operator. So if we source our employees from a second chance program, or if we source our employees from Native and Indigenous peoples, or if we're looking at how are we getting into classrooms early to create a pathway to this career, I think that's important. So we're looking at all of those pieces. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Layton, and in another lifetime, I was the principal of Network Charter School, one of today's sponsors. And I want to add the 1001th story, which is one year when I was principal, the bus driver our kids take the bus everywhere they go, and they have outlying classrooms. And one year, the bus driver on the last day of school, I think he brought oranges or something that, parents would find unexceptionable, and handed them to each kid as the kid got off the bus, as a way of saying goodbye and I'll miss you. And I thought, oh my gosh, these are the world's most original, creative kids. And they were like, surely not the easiest passengers anybody ever had. And the whole, not only did the kids feel good, but the faculty felt good about sending them into the world, into a village that understood it was raising all the children. But I'm one of those people getting older and older living in the South Hills. I would not take my car out every day if I could get down the hill to the bus station, the bus stop. And so like 39th and Willamette, to get to 39th and Willamette, I can't do it. I mean, I have a bad knee right now. Even if I was riding a bike, I couldn't do it. It would be too scary. What are the hopes that someday there will be a microservice or something up into those places that seemed like such a good idea at the time, but maybe not such a good idea now?
That's a fabulous question, and thanks for sharing that. I think it's important that we look at what are the types of services that make a difference, and that's a perfect application. Places that have ridership that may not be as dense, or the numbers may not be as high. How do we connect to the larger transit system? We're in the process right now of rolling out a mobility management strategy that goes to answer those questions, not just in terms of microtransit, but where does bike share play a role, and where does, my favorite mobility tool is a good sidewalk, right? So where does LTD fit into that, and what does that mean for how we deliver service? Because all of those pieces connecting help to create a better mobility environment. So we're going to be looking at that. That option is not off the table. We're just in the process of assessing it.
I'm Randy Prince. I'm from the Amazon neighborhood in South Eugene and been with the City Club over the years, a long time. And over the years, our city has put out various redevelopment projects, improvements to an area. For example, the Franklin Street Boulevard, and then there's the riverfront. And transit seems to come in kind of late in the process a lot of times. And I'm not talking about the transit projects like putting in the BRT or MX. But I was wondering if in Kansas City or any place else you've observed how the aims of transit and bicyclists can be earlier, considered earlier in the process, to be part of the original vision, rather than how do you adapt that to the needs of transit and bicyclists and pedestrians.
Yeah, I wish I had a really good answer for that point of reference from Kansas City, but that's the same question there as well. You're right. You know, in terms of the planning process, transportation should be on the front end because that's how people get where they're going to be. I had a great conversation the other day with Councilor Groves, and we were talking about just that. And I think that it's important for us to be at the table on the planning side, because once you start reverse engineering it, it becomes a mess. And I'll talk about Kansas City. You know, Kansas City is about 300 square miles, and a lot of the work is warehousing. A lot of trucking. 70 goes east-west, 35 north-south, and the warehouses are located way away from the urban core. So we'll try to put a bus route there, but guess what happens? The warehouses are so big, which means the parking lots are so big that we drop someone off at the bus stop and they still have a quarter mile to get to the front door. So in terms of planning, that could have happened in another way where and the system would have paid for it. The stops could have been closer to the front door, would deliver your workers directly to you. The other piece is that some of those jobs are so far out based on where they source their people. Their HR people come in and they'll show the zip codes, and there's just no way that you can make up for that once it's already done. So I think intentional planning includes all of the pieces that we need, whether including wastewater and other pieces that are beyond the transportation piece that all connect. And I think a lot of times people see public transportation as this thing that sits over here, but it's actually the thing that runs through it all. So it has to be more intentional. So I don't have a good answer or good experience on that, but I will say that there's energy here to make sure those conversations are on the front end. Case in point, we're right here, really. The development that's happening here in City Hall, right? Mm-hmm. There's already conversations on what kind of service will work here and how do we do that. The streets are narrow there, right? So it probably won't be a 60-foot bus. It'll be something else. But those conversations are happening now, and it's early enough in the stages for those to begin and be effective. There's hope.
Hi. Betty Taylor, City Club member since 1990, and former city councilor. I have a lot of questions, but I'll ask the one about holidays, I guess. One of them is, why can't dogs be on buses? My dog. But a very important thing, I think, is that the buses don't run on holidays, and I wonder if there's a plan to have them run. And I know personally, at least one person, who lives in one part of town, family in another part of town, and on Christmas or Thanksgiving, family members are too busy getting dinner ready to go pick the person up, and the person does not have a car and it's too far to walk. And I think holidays are a really important time for buses to run. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well done. I can't speak to your dog, but probably a good dog, probably well-behaved. Well-behaved dog. Hey, so in terms of bus schedules, you know, we develop those. Part of it is developed along with our labor negotiations, and pieces of that are that, you know, we have folks that have families at home as well. I mean, just to be frank with you, have families at home as well. We publish those schedules out really early and try to do a good job that way. Some of the holidays have different schedules based on ridership. So some of the holidays may have a weekend schedule, some of them may have a weekday schedule, some of them have no service. But at the end of the day, we also have to have that balance to make sure that the folks that are turning the wheels are properly rested and in the right mind frame to continue to do that job day in and day out. But we do publish those well ahead of the holidays. I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, but it's what I got. Yeah, you do.
My name's Joey. I have I think, simple question. Can you talk about future plans for electrification and constraints related to that and the logistics of electrification? I think you said maybe 30% of the buses are electric at this point.
That's simple to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. No, that's a fantastic question. We have a lot of conversations around that. We have fully electric, battery electric buses, and to me, we're at this place right now where you might be too young to remember this. VHS versus Beta. Okay, all right. VHS versus Beta, right? And what's going to win out? Is it hydrogen? Is it battery? What's it going to be? We're testing battery right now. It's a challenge. You know, we go back and we look and we have to replace with one of our clean diesel or R99 diesels. If we shelve that, we have to replace it with two, right? Two buses to replace it just because of the charge, how long the charge, it'll go on the charge. And that requires more staffing as well, right? It requires us to tool up. There's an infrastructure question as well. We've had this discussion briefly with Senator Merkley. We're going to talk to his staff, and he's keenly interested in the success of battery electric, as is everyone. I think, you know, I drive a fully electric car right now. I feel comfortable taking it to Salem, but beyond that, I get a little nervous, right? But you know, it's important because that's a huge investment. So about $1 million for each of these electric buses, all right, and it's 2 for 1. So we're talking a major investment. We're talking a 12-year commitment to that investment because that's the federal share goes 12 years, the lifespan 12 years on those vehicles. So we want to be intentional with how we're using them. I think the bigger challenge for electric is really understanding where the power is sourced, right? Because are you getting it from a clean source upstream, and then what do you do with the batteries downstream? And then how are the batteries created? How are those sourced as well? So I think there's a lot of questions around that for the overall impact. That said, there's an interest in getting it to work and understand how it works, and the technology will improve. I mean, it's still in the early stages, from my opinion, in terms of the buses, the types of vehicles that we use. So we're going to keep our eye on that. We're going to keep tracking it, and we're going to keep sharing our results. I mean, that's the way that it improves, is we tell the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we talk about the data that can come from those, and you know, should we have charging, on-route charging, or all charging at our location? Those are all major infrastructure questions that require huge investments. So we've got to get it right, and going fast on this one isn't really the answer, in my opinion.
Jameson, thank you for coming today. I'm John Belcher, and I rooked you into this, so
Thank you.
Thank you very much. My question is going to be about my neighborhood, which is River Road, and the effort to put MX on River Road. My perception is that there was a lot of misinformation shared in that process, and it wasn't countered with correct information. So I have two-part question. Number one is, what are your future plans for the MX program, if you can share them? It may be premature. And secondly, what will you do differently so the information that's out there is correct?
Sure. So MX, I think, you know, where it's located right now in most places, it's doing well. Now, there could be questions about one of the legs that goes off into Springfield, and that's partly because some of the economic development that was anticipated simply didn't happen. But in terms of where MX goes on River Road, or, you know, Coburg Road, or wherever else, I think that's a community conversation. You know, I think that's a conversation of what is, you know, what's the ROI on it? What are we trying to solve for? What will the ridership look like? You know, does it, you know, already on River Road between the Route 51 and Route 52, there's two routes. They kind of, one goes this way and one goes that way. It's 15-minute headways. So, you know, there's already good service there. I'm not sure what MX does to make it even better, but those are the pieces that we need to really understand. So my answer on MX is, we're going to use the right tool for the right job. In terms of communication, I think that LTD could do a better job of getting out in front of things, laying the information out there, good, bad, ugly, making sure it's easily accessible. You know, if I have a bus that runs 12 people on it, it's 12 people. I can't spin it and say 18 because 12 is 12. And I think that you know, sometimes we do some things where it's not easy for the customer to find the information. And honestly, sometimes it looks like it's intentionally that way. So one of the things that I found is that if I ask for ridership trends, we say, hey, they're reported, our operating stats are reported. Well, where are they? Well, they're on page 100 of our audited financial reports. Well, who wants to read the audited financial report up to page 99? Oh, Bill does. Bill will. Bill Bradley will. But, you know, the average Joe isn't going to do that. The average person wants to just get the information they're after, have it in a nice, clean, easy way, easily to be retrieved. And I think that's how we need to do that kind of information, but also our communication in the public, no matter what the medium is, and how we do that.
I'm Andrew Cowling, President-elect of City Club. Thanks for being here. You mentioned the pilot in Cottage Grove. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about what you're hoping to get out of that, and in particular, whether you're seeing demand from your rural clients from their municipality to a job center, like Cottage Grove to Springfield, Florence to Eugene, or if you're seeing them actually between more rural places, Cottage Grove to Crestwell or Florence to Mapleton or something like that. Thanks.
Andrew, that's a great question. Thank you for that. We so the pilot down in Cottage Grove is doing well. I was actually just looking at those numbers today. It's a small project. It's a microtransit, so it's called the Connector, and it stays within Cottage Grove. And you use it the way you would use an Uber. You download the app. You put your trip in when you want to go to pick you up. Right now, the average wait time for that, if you were to do it now, is about 12 minutes. Just under 12 minutes is what it was on the last report I saw. The on-time performance is really good, and it's getting pretty good reviews. Last November, I think, was a stat, had about 130 unique users on it, which is pretty good for a city that size with that service. I think it's important for us to look at the comparables in other places, to really be able to gauge it that way, and to also assess the users and the people paying for it to see what the experience is with it and what they'd like to see. Your question on rural is interesting, and that's been on my mind and actually on our board's mind as well. I think there's a real opportunity here to look at rural transportation, to look at what types of services work in that, and we're going to do that. So we're talking about, we're talking about the next pilot having a rural component of microtransit. Our planners are just now starting to kind of peel back the onion on that. So more to hear on that in the future as that gets further down the line. But our COA will help us as well to understand how are our services running, who's using the services, and our ridership survey that's out there now will give us some more insight on that. I think there's other tools that we're not using right now that we're assessing that can help us with commute patterns, tools that use cell phone data to look at how the trips are being generated, where they're going, and what key corridors we need to address, how we need to shift resources to better connect those communities. But we see that as a real opportunity, and there's opportunities within coming out of the Federal Transit Administration. They're keenly interested on what does the rural landscape look like in terms of transportation. So stay tuned on that. That's going to be a key focus area for us.
Afternoon, Mr. Alton. My name is Zach. I'm a reporter with KVAL News here in Eugene and Springfield. Question, you talked a little bit about staffing, the issues you guys have faced staffing, and I think some of that, there's an idea that might have to do with some issues that have surrounded transit in our state with driver safety. Senate Bill 787, I don't know how familiar you are with it, is about increasing the criminal penalty for assault on a public transit worker while out at work. They have a public hearing on Tuesday about that. So in the lead up to that, we see what's happening at the state level. Is there anything for LTD's plans as far as ensuring that the safety of your drivers once you do get those drivers employed? Thank you.
Yeah, real quick, what was the answer to the question of the day this morning? Okay.
Good question. That's the digital team.
All right, I'll check Facebook later. I think I put phone booth on there, telephone booth. All right, so your question is about safety, which I made a joke just then, but it's really no joke. We are experiencing what the communities experience. I would love to say that LTD is in a bubble, and things that happen on the street don't make their way onto the stations or onto the buses. But one thing that how we're approaching is we are looking at our public safety posture. So we've added resources to public safety, and We're looking for partnerships to help us to identify wraparound services for folks that need those. I think that sometimes handcuffs are warranted and sometimes some other kind of service is warranted. And we want to go ahead and make sure that we're able to do that. But at the end of the day, everyone gets home safe. That's our mentality. We want our frontline workers to be supported. We do support them. We have our executives riding buses. We have our administrative staff riding buses. We have our board riding buses, and we extend an invite to anyone in here to ride buses with us. One, to see what the experience truly is, because no matter how you dice it, public transportation is still one of the safest modes. And also to show our frontline employers that they're supported, right? To show them that they're supported. I think that presence matters. I think that having people on buses, whether I have an LTD hat on or T-shirt, whether I look like a cop or not, makes a difference. It makes a difference in how people behave. It makes a difference in how people interact. So that's what we're doing. We're being more present. We're getting feedback. We're giving updates to where they need to be. And we're having our administrative folks ride so they can take what they see and learn into the decision-making process, because you can't lead from the back. All coaches have to coach from the sideline. So that's what we're doing. And I think that time spent in a simple thing of just sitting down in the room like this, in the operator break room, and just saying what's going on in your day makes the hugest difference, because then we're able to actually apply that, and we're learning a lot of lessons that way. So thank you for that. I'm sorry, in terms of 787, I don't want to get punched while I'm at work, and I don't want any of my coworkers getting punched while they're working either. So I think if you assault anyone, there should be consequences.
Thank you, Jameson, and I'm sorry to say that we are out of time for more questions today, because I know there are more. I wanted to ask you about how LTD thinks about housing, and I wanted to learn more about how your work relates to our workforce, but we will have to invite you back for that conversation.
Love to talk about that.
Thank you very much for being with us here today. And thank you, everyone. So much to learn in thinking about the planning for our community today and long into the future. This has been our April 21st, 2023 conversation at the City Club of Eugene with Lane Transit District's new General Manager and CEO, Jameson T. Otten. Next week, on Friday, April 28th, we hope that you will join us at City Club again at the 5th Street Market as we welcome Mayor Lucy Vinnis for our annual Lunch with the Mayor program, keeping with conversations with our local public leaders, and in this case, of course, a very important one. Then on Friday, May 9th, City Club will host a program on wildlife conservation. We are bringing in the animals, people. Just kidding. I keep asking. Not sure if that will happen, but City Club will be delighted to welcome the Cascade Raptor Center, Mackenzie River Trust, and also the High Desert Museum to downtown Eugene. I'm not joking. I have requested owls. I don't know if they will be able to be here with us, but we do promise it will be a fantastic conversation, and we hope that you will be with us here for that. I also want to thank and acknowledge all of City Club's volunteers, as well as our in-kind sponsors, KRVM 91.9 Radio, Pack Info and Simplified Computing, LLC, and Dot Sotson's Photography, as well as a very special thank you to our award-winning public radio station, KLCC FM 89.7, for airing City Club programs on Mondays at 7 p.m. For those of you who are listening at home right now, your household is one of several thousand who have tuned into this conversation on KLCC, and we love that you are here. You can also find all recent City Club programs archived on KLCC's website, as well as on the City Club of Eugene YouTube channel, and as podcasts. Finally, one last quick note. City Club has been celebrating National Volunteer Appreciation Week, and we hope that every community volunteer and volunteer organizer in our community has been doing the same. I want to thank another critical trio today who helps make City Club possible every week. If you are here with us in person, you see them in action every week. But a very special thank you to the members of City Club's Welcoming Committee, Roz Stein, Sharon Reed, and Sandy Smalley, for making this such a welcoming and wonderful space to be in. Thank you. And thank you all for joining us today at the City Club of Eugene. Take care, and we look forward to seeing you soon.